Hey there, listeners. Welcome back to Podcast Demastered. My name is Wade. I'm here with Chelsea. And this week, we're going to be talking about what we've been reading lately, which is like, oh, yay, exciting. But hey, maybe it will be exciting. You never know.
Yes.
We don't get to talk about like what we're reading very much. We talk about games and movies and stuff like a lot. But we also like to cuddle up with the book and just kind of relax in that way too. So we thought we'd sit down today and see what's going on in our lives lately. So what about you, Chelsea? What have you been reading? Oh, I know the answer, I think, but what have you been reading?
Oh. Way to spoil it.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
okay, yeah. I feel like it's been slow going for me reading. I mean, I finally made it a commitment to actually read a little bit each night, and I had it going for at least a month or two.
Oh, that's such a good habit, though.
Of course, now the last week or so, I haven't been reading every night, but I need to get back into it to make it a good habit.
Mm-hmm.
But I did finish a book when we had recorded our Miyazaki episode. It really got me into wanting to read more Miyazaki stuff. So the book I just finished is called Hayao Miyazaki, Master of Japanese Animation, and it's by Helen McCarthy. We'll post pictures of our books, so maybe if people are interested in checking them out, then they can look for us there on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Check us out at Podmaster. But I got this book from my mom years ago. This is actually a really old book. It came out in 1999.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah, so I don't think my mom gave it to me right when it came out, but I've had it for years. And it's really interesting because, it came out in 1999, but clearly Miyazaki has made films since then. But this does cover kind of, where he got his start and the different animation techniques that they use in the films, and it kind of does a breakdown of all of his films up until 1999. And so that's really cool. It's also really funny reading this book, especially in 2022, and reading the language of the book and how it talks about, he's making his final film. They're like, it's about this girl, and it deals with spirits or something. Her name might be Chihiro or something, but this might be his final film. And I'm like, I know what this film is. It does very well.
It's okay, book. Don't worry.
It wins an Oscar. Yeah. And don't worry, he makes quite a few more after that. But it's really interesting because I really liked because the author actually did interview Miyazaki for this book, which is really cool. She actually went to Japan and sat down with him for a day or two and
Oh, that's cool.
got to actually learn about his thoughts behind everything he's made. And so in the book, she talks about what she learned from him, and then when she breaks down each movie, she does a synopsis, and then she kind of does talking about the themes of the movie, the history that went into the process of making it. So I really like that from the film side, getting to see the different animation techniques and everything that was done for creating those various films. And then the end part, she kind of does some commentary on it, what are the underlying the meanings of the film or what people got out of it and how well it was reviewed during the time it came out. So I thought it was a pretty cool read. I think anybody who's a fan of Miyazaki's work, even though it's an older book, it still has a lot of great information. It does a good job of breaking down the older films, which, we've talked about before about, his films, a lot of his films, could be considered a lot older now, but that doesn't matter. They still resonate with people today, so.
They sure do. And it's really cool that she got to go to Japan during that time specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Because before, the majority of most internet and, there weren't
Yeah.
IMs going back and forth. It's really cool that she got to go and do that at such a cool time. And then to 20 some years later to get to reflect on how the book was written and what they thought at the time and stuff like that. That's got to be so cool.
Yeah. So I was really excited because I think I've read bits and pieces of this book before, but I couldn't remember really just sitting down and reading it and then just being wow, yeah, look at all these films today and yeah, everything that's happened since then. And it was a fun read. It also, of course, has both black and white and colored pictures from all the movies. So it's just fun to look at those and just stare at them because, they are works of art. Yeah. And then one other thing that was really cool with this book is that at the very end, it goes through basically Miyazaki's history of all of his works, even from the TV episodes to manga he's worked on, and it just does it all in order, and it has a little summary of each one. And so it's like, here's all the other stuff that we didn't get to cover in the book because we only highlighted the films, but this is everything he's ever worked on up until 1999. So that was really cool to read about episodes of some shows I had never even heard of.
So it's just like particular episodes of particular shows?
Yeah, like when he was really starting up in the animation industry, he had worked on various anime shows. One of them was like Gulliver's Space Travels is what it was called, and there's like one about a detective I think he worked on at some point. And
didn't he work on, was it Case Closed or was it Lupin the Third?
He definitely worked on Lupin the Third.
There we go.
Yeah. And then he did like Pippi Longstocking, and then it talks about like the art design or the screenplay for a particular thing, so, or how many episodes he had worked on. So it's really neat. And that, like, you could just like just soak in all that information. That I'm like, that's a lot of information in so few pages of just his whole history.
That's really cool that you still have that. Is it still in pretty good condition?
Oh yeah, I like to say I take pride in taking care of my book. So I mean, I think, yeah, it looks great. I think I've.
Oh, it does look great.
Yeah, I think I put the wear and tear because I took it to the beach and I read it there, and so it got a little bit bent, but it still looks great. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. So I haven't read anything since. I need to get back to one of the books I was reading before this. I was reading Facing the Mountain. I probably have talked about this in a couple episodes. It's about Japanese Americans during World War II fighting in the 442nd.
Yeah.
So I hope to finish that book soon. I think I'm about 3/4 of the way through that one. So maybe we'll do another one of these. Yeah, I know.
Right?
Maybe when we do another one of these talks.
We talked about doing this episode, and I was kind of reflecting at that time, like, man, like what have I read lately?
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, I just got out of band camp not too long ago, which was just such an energy sink. Like, and then like last week, the week after band camp, I've just been like absolutely brain dead. As I continue to like get ready for the start of the school year and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad because I like at any time of the year, I always have a small stack of books on my nightstand. Usually there's one in my backpack that I take to school with me, and there's a small stack on my nightstand of books that I've started and have not finished yet. Mm-hmm. And I try to keep them like within sight of me so I can like remind myself,
yeah,
hey,
nice reminder.
You need to do this. You need to do this. And so I know I've talked about it. I've talked about this series on the podcast before. It's by V.E. Schwab. I think the first one is called A Darker Shade of Magic. I'm on the second book of the trilogy called A Gathering of Shadows. Like, I'm not very far at all in this one, but they're really, really good. I haven't made myself push through like I should be. It's not like they're uninteresting or anything like that. It's just I'll sit down to read it and get a couple pages in, and then like it's time for bed.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for me. But something I'm always reading like every single week, because they come out every single week, is comics. And so I don't get a ton of comics, but I get an amount where I'm like, I need to make sure that I'm staying on top of what I have. And the majority of what I get in comics is usually Spider-Man, like the Peter Parker Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man. And over the last year or so, this stack has been getting a little taller, but I get a lot of X-Men comics. Just like the current era of X-Men comics, like for me, has just been so good. And I'll be caught up in something. I'm like, man, I didn't touch this one at all. So I'll go back and start reading this one. And
can't go wrong with X-Men.
And sometimes it's a lot. I mean, you can. Yeah. You're right. And they're doing a good job of keeping me entertained with it all.
That's great. Yeah.
So like right now, they've got the big X-Men versus Eternals versus Avengers thing, and everybody's dying and awful things are happening in it. So, that keeps me coming back for more. So there's that. But as we were preparing for this episode, I did start writing down a list of things that I have not started yet, that I would like to read, or books or series that I have that I would like to reread. So hopefully by the next time we do another episode like this, I have a lot more to talk about. So
yes.
So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I know. That reminds me. So, are you a person who reads multiple books at once, or are you just one that?
I absolutely am.
That's how you are with video games.
And I do this with books and movies and everything. I'm so good at starting something, and I'll go like ham into it. Like I will be obsessive, and I'll reach a point where I'm like, that's enough of that, and I'll move on to the next thing without finishing that. And I'll do that like several times over. It's one of my weaknesses, I think. I wish I could just finish it and move on, but I guess that's just not how my poor millennial brain works.
Well, there's so many exciting things I can understand. Just like don't want to miss out on it and jump from one to the next. I felt really bad. Like I was like kind of like shame on you, Chelsea, for doing this when I started reading the Miyazaki book and I hadn't finished Facing the Mountain. Because yeah, I'm one person. I have to stick with one thing because I feel like if I don't stick with it, I won't finish it or I'll forget what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then when I get back to it, I'll be like, do I even want to like continue from this point or do I need to reread it? Like, I don't know. So yeah, I just try to read one thing at a time because yes, you talk about comics all the time. It makes me so excited because I'm so far behind on X-Men comics and I just start reading those. But
by the time you start, like, I hope you do get to start your new X-Men era stuff.
Yes.
Because I've like, you have that nice big event that I sent to you, like, that starts off the whole Krakoan era. Mm-hmm. And then after that, like, you're going to be on the other side of, like, a whole new thing. Like, once you finish that event, and then you're going to have so much to choose from. Because there were after that happened, there were so many books that started, but they were all, like, coherent. They all involved each other, like, they didn't just go off on a thing and just do whatever they want. Like, they were all solidified to the core story of Krakoa. And that leads into an event, which leads into an event. You know, like, yeah. And you don't have to read everything, because that would be awful. With comics, that's bad. You don't want to have to read everything.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to choose from.
I feel like I'll be kind of spoiled by that because, of course, I'd love to be caught up, but also at the same time, I can be patient, but I don't want to be like anxiously waiting the latest issue, and I like to be able to read a lot. Mm-hmm. So this way I'll be able to read a lot at once, and I'll have plenty.
At the moment, you have like, I don't know, 2.5, maybe 3 years. I don't know. It feels like Krakoa just started, but it was before the pandemic that it started.
Yeah. So I'll have plenty to.
You've got quite a bit to get through, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I probably have a ton before this too that I need to read, but I'll just start with this and move forward, and then I'll go back and read everything else I've missed.
Yeah, I've got, like, X-Men specifically, I've got some stories that I've never gotten to read that I want to go back to start looking into, like the major apocalypse stories. I've never read those.
I haven't either.
I'd like to, but I can't find, like, a good reading order. Like, for the stuff I want to read, I'm like, I just want to read this. And if I find a reading order, like, no, you need to read, like, all of this beforehand. And I'm like, no. No, I don't. Like, I know X-Men gets like that a lot, but, like, no, I don't. I don't need to do all that. Yeah. So, I could just start right at the beginning and just
dive right in and see what happens.
Figure stuff out. I don't know.
I know, that's so hard with comics because I've done research before where I tried to, like, map it all out from, like, the original, like, the very first X-Men issue all the way through everything. And I was trying to be like, I need to read this, followed by these. And I had it all lined up. And I'm like, this is so crazy. But it's a blast. And yes, maybe our next episode with reading, we'll just have all comics to talk about.
All the comics.
Yes.
Well, the second you finally manage to read the House of Powers and stuff like that, we really need to sit down, I think, and have an episode just on that.
Yes.
Because a lot happens in those issues. Like, it literally changes, like, timelines and stories and everything that has to do with what's come before leading into what's happening next. So I'm really interested, as someone who has a really good history with the X-Men. Like, before I started reading the Krakoa stuff, I didn't know, like, I knew some stuff, but I wasn't, like, into the X-Men comics. Like, I didn't really have a history with it.
Oh, okay.
So I was able to just accept things how they were and just start right there.
Well, that's really good to know. Yeah.
Now, since then, I've gone back and, like, read this and this and this and this since then. But going into the Krakoan era, I didn't have, like, a timeline in my head of where these characters were before Krakoa and what had happened and things like that.
Well, listeners, if you're looking forward to that or interested in hearing our thoughts on that particular part of the X-Men comics, you can be on the lookout for that episode later on.
Yeah, this is
turning into an X-Men episode.
Another X-Men episode. Not that that's a problem, but yes. Hey. Okay, well, let's see if we can make a left turn and get away from X-Men here. Is there anything on your list that you want to start reading? Like, pretend you don't have another pile of books you need to finish. Is there anything that you want to start reading or look into or anything like that?
Oh, I have so many things. Well, there is actually a series of graphic novels I have that I technically have never read, but it's on my must-read list. It's called Manifest Destiny. Mm-hmm. It's about the Lewis and Clark expedition, but with like supernatural elements to it.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm obsessed with the Lewis and Clark expedition. And so I was like, yes, this is related to that. I must get it. But I just haven't actually sat down and just gone through all those issues of that. So I would just love to do it because I think this year they actually just released the final book of them all. So
it's binging
I will
time.
be able to read them. Yes, yes. I've been kind of holding out for that, but it's taken a long time to get here. So I definitely want to read that soon and just binge it all. And I really hope it's as good as I believe it to be. So
well, that's good. I didn't know that existed. So.
Yeah, I honestly don't even know how I stumbled across it. And to be honest, I've had this series years. I'm just really behind on reading. I just need to just go for it. But movies and video games distract me.
I get that. And so we've gone to Barnes and Noble like a good few times this summer, which is good. And the good thing is like I can go without buying something. Usually we wouldn't go very much. So when we would go, I'm like, well, I got to get this. Oh my gosh, this looks really good. But we've got to a point where I can go without, like I can just go and browse.
Oh, wow.
I don't have to buy anything, that's big. That's a big thing for me in books.
I understand that.
So I have my list of things that I want to read and reread like for months and months and months. I've been wanting to, I don't know why. You can judge me, it's fine. But I've wanted to reread the Inheritance Cycle books, like the Eragon books. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, because I don't know if they're like worth a reread, But because I really liked them, but I think the last time I read them was I think it was right before the final book came out. So that was like college time, sometime around then, I think. But that was like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
So I feel like I need to reread those. I have a book. I've reread it several times, and it's been quite a while. It's called The Commoner, and it's a fictional story about a real life event. One of those kinds of things.
Oh, okay.
Where basically, like, it takes place in Japan, right at the end of World War II, and the main character, the girl, she grows up to become the first, like, non-royal wife of the emperor.
Oh, okay.
She was just a commoner. She was just a regular person. And she was, like, I don't know, 4 or 5, I think, when, at the end of World War II. So her life takes place during the westernization of Japan and the changing of government and in the empire and stuff like that, and goes into her life of, she became the empress and how life transitioned and how things were after and stuff like that, and her giving birth to children and having to make decisions for them and stuff like that. And it's such a sad book, just knowing that it's real life,
Yeah.
It's been quite a while, so I'd like to reread that, but I have other things I haven't finished reading, so it's got to stay hidden for now. So if I don't see it, I won't pick it up.
But it's on your list to eventually reread. No, you mentioning the Inheritance Cycle series. I've actually been thinking about that series lately. I think I've been thinking about it ever since we hated on the Eragon movie. And I was like,
I don't feel like that's hating on it. I feel like it's fair.
Yeah, but then I'm also like, I should reread that series. And also, I don't think technically I ever read the last book. So I feel like I need to just read the actual series, and then maybe I'll watch the movie again so I can rightfully judge it, since I haven't watched it since it came out.
No. Maybe we can go outside and burn it or something, but
We'll do an episode about it. Maybe we should do an episode about it, and then
episode where we burn it. That would be cool.
we talk about specifically why this movie is so terrible, but by the series it's great or something, and then we can burn the video.
Okay, then if we both finish the series, then if both of us do it, and only if, every word of this series, Chelsea, I will rewatch the movie.
Okay.
But only if.
Listeners, we're gonna do this. I will reread the
Good,
series.
another book to add to my pile.
3 years from now I'll finish it, but yes, add it to the pile. Lots of reading headed our way. Making time for reading, yes.
I need to. Mm-hmm. I used to love reading, like, growing up. I always had a book with me. Mm-hmm. Like, I was always reading, even in college. But, like, becoming a teacher, like, you think, like, we would read all the time. No.
Yeah.
Like, in my middle schoolers, once a week, on a specific day at the end of the day, they have, like, a 20-25 minute period of time where they have to read for me. They can read anything they want to, you know, anything. But they have to read. And when the planets align and everybody's sitting in their little comfy section of the room and they have a book and they're at least being quiet about not reading, I'll be able to pull my book out and get a few pages in. But that happens so rarely, because usually I'm chasing somebody around or somebody's arguing with me about having their book upside down or something ridiculous like that, you know. But hey, I'll have to try to be better about it.
I think that's what we have a goal. We're going to read more, and we hope to share more of what we've been reading with all of our listeners soon.
Indeed. All right. Well, if you're still with us here, folks, we're really happy you came and stopped by and listened to us chat. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Let us know where you listen to it, too. I think we'd be interested in knowing.
Yeah.
But we do appreciate you all. And if you'd like to write us a review, please let us know how we're doing. Or if there's something else that you'd like to hear from us. Chelsea and I, like, we want to be able to react to what you all want. So the more you ask of us, the more we'd happy to put out for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us at demasteredpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and now YouTube at Pod Demastered. So until next time, we'll see you later.
See ya.